Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this Sunday afternoon Dhamma program. And today we're continuing with looking at the verses in the Dhammapada. And this week we're going to be going over chapter 12 in the Dhammapada. That is the chapter on the self. Everybody's very interested in the self. The Atta Vaga. So that means the sense of self that we have, our I consciousness, and that our whole world revolves around our sense of self. So I'm going to again chant the Pali and then the English translation. Atanam chepiyam jana rakeyanam surakitam tinnam manyataram yamam patijageya pandito. So the translation of that is, if one holds oneself dear, one should protect oneself well. During every one of the 3 watches of the night, the wise person should keep vigil. So now, of course, this might seem a little bit contradictory to people who are familiar with the concept of self or no self. So all of you know that one of the fundamental 3 characteristics of the Buddhist teaching is anatta, about no self, that there's actually no ultimate, permanent, indwelling entity that we can actually call ourself, because it's just a process of constantly changing phenomena. And there's no owner or controller of it. So, and a lot of people think, oh, we shouldn't care about the self because self is the source of evil and so on. That is an uncontrolled sense of self. Now, a good attained sense of self, in a sense of self in moderation, is actually beneficial for the initial stages of practice. Because naturally, everybody wants to, be happy, right? So we have to have a sense, even though ultimately there's no I that's going to be happy, on the relative level, there is an I. We don't deny that. The Buddha didn't deny that. So we have a relative I, but we've abused it by not understanding the function of the self should be to improve our spiritual journey and purify our minds. But most people use the sense of self to get more infatuated with the sensory world and enmeshed in the web of kama, of greed, hatred, and delusion. So, and that self has become uncontrolled. It's become a slave to one's passions of lust and anger and the whole gamut of emotions. So it is saying, if one holds oneself dear, one should protect oneself well. And that means protecting oneself from the negative mind states and self-created suffering. So we protect our mind from, unhealthy habits and from being addicted to the ego and boosting all of our unskillful mental states, such as pride, conceit, and jealousy and envy, greed, hatred, and so on. These are the things that harm ourselves. So if we want to protect ourselves, if we hold ourselves dear, if we value our self and its higher attributes, that's what is meaning that we have to protect oneself from the evil influences or the unwholesome influences that are always trying to flood in around us, whether it's the influences of the media, the influence of your friends, the influences of, just the of impermanence and all the things that happen. So basically it means to protect one's mind and also to protect the body, right? Because we don't want to incur our own physical body unnecessary pain, because you all know it's difficult to be calm and meditate when you're worried about various things that are happening to your body that might be caused from your unmindfulness and by doing things that cause unnecessary imbalance in our mind, which causes pain. And therefore, when you sit to meditate, you'll be, having distracting thoughts about, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to this and that, and so on. And let alone your energy level to practice. So during every one of the 3 watches, the wise person should keep vigil. So this pertains to the 3 watches of the night. It means usually it's considered to be from sundown until about 10 p.m. And then from 10 p.m., the middle watch to 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And then the last watch from about 3 a.m. to sunrise. So these are and usually, of course, monks or the Buddha used to only rest in 1 watch of the night, usually the middle watch. But they would keep vigilant. That means watching their mind because, of unwholesome tendencies entering one's mind, or maybe you're plotting revenge against somebody, or you have some, or planning to do something that's sort of against the right living, the precepts and so on. Okay, so that means if one really holds oneself dear and wants to achieve happiness, one has to protect oneself from ourself, really, because it's our own ego that has developed these unhealthy addictions because of this addiction for pleasure and getting angry if somebody criticizes you or blames you. The self is always trying to protect itself, and which leads to, of course, the various unwholesome things. So that's what the meaning of this verse. And so the story behind that is there was a royal couple, that means probably a prince and their wife or something, the king of a queen or somebody in the royal family. that couldn't have a child. Maybe the woman was barren or whatever, they couldn't conceive a child. So the Buddha told them, because the Buddha could read their past lives, that not their ability not to have a child was due to not having led a harmless life in the past or a heedful life in the previous life. So for that reason, their karmic result was that they wouldn't be able to conceive a child. Maybe they were abusive to their children in a previous life. So as a kind of a karmic payback, so to speak, then they were denied the ability to have a child in this life. And so the Buddha advised them to be vigilant in this life, not to be harmful to others, and to create good karma, so that in the future they would be able to conceive. So now the second verse. We're going to skip to the third verse. You don't have time to go through all of them, but so the third verse in the Attavagga. Again, I'll read the Pali. Atanam chetata karya yatanya manusasati sudanto vatadamet hatahi kira duddano. As he instructs others, so should he himself act. Himself fully controlled, he should control others. That means not control in some kind of a negative way, but advise others to be self-restrained and so on. For oneself indeed is difficult to control. Now, a lot of people, they tell others they should behave, right? But then they don't even behave themselves. Maybe your parents or other people, they're always telling, oh, you should do that, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. And then we find out they themselves are doing it, right? Even we've seen examples during this COVID where governors of states and other people are telling people, don't go on a vacation, stay at home. And then they find out they went on a vacation someplace, right? Or found out they were going to the bar, not wearing a mask. So these people were telling others to control their own actions, and they were not controlling themselves. So therefore, one who's in that position, they should, as the saying goes, the cliche, right? Walk the talk, right? So as you talk, you should live your own life and not expect just others to do that, and you not. But we can see that's it's very common in life. So for oneself indeed is difficult to control. It means to control the urges and the strong habits that the self has created. And one of the deepest habits is self-preservation. In the Tibetan Buddhism, there's a nice phrase that they use, the self-cherishing eye, because the eye cherishes oneself more than anybody else when it really comes down to it. And so we're always out to protect the self's interests to the detriment of others. Now, of course, we need to do that to a certain extent, but we should also, not to overdo it and to follow the middle path and all those different things. So here's the story behind this. A monk advised others to practice meditation with earnestness, but he himself was heedless sleeping in all 3 watches of the night as he liked, and not, getting up for morning meditation, or not staying up later for the evening meditation, and things like that. So the Buddha advised the instructors to act according to their own instruction. And that's for our own good. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm beyond meditation now. I don't have to practice meditation. And sometimes the teachers think that, now they're teaching and they slack off on their own practice, or even like doing yoga and so on. And all these things that we encourage other people to do, we have to practice ourselves, because even though we might be advanced in meditation or even in yoga, if we leave it off for some period of time, unless you're an arahant or at least an anagami, you can backslide. You can lose that level of concentration and mindfulness, or lose your flexibility, and then the benefits that come with good flexibility that comes from, doing yoga and things like that, right? So, that's why, even the Buddha practiced until he's the Buddha, right? He was already fully enlightened, but he practiced, all the time. He set the example too. So, okay, now the 4th verse. Atahiyatano nato kohi nato parosya atana vasudantena natam labati dulabam. Oneself indeed is one's savior. For what other savior would there be? With oneself well controlled, one obtains a savior difficult to find. So again, the Buddha, when the Buddha passed away, people were asking, oh, who's going to guide us now? Our teacher is gone, and so on. And the Buddha told him, don't take anybody else. Take the Dhamma for your teacher. And that you have to strive on with diligence. The Buddha's last words were, strive on with diligence. That means taking the Dhamma as your refuge. Don't seek any external refuge, because they're not dependable. Of course, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have spiritual friends and depend on teachers, but not overly dependent. And if the teacher's not around, say, oh, I can't meditate, my teacher's not around. Well, who's going to give me a guided meditation? We have to become our own savior, so to speak. But a lot of people are waiting for, somebody else to come and save them, isn't it? Whether it's the future Maitreya Buddha in the future, or the second coming of some other spiritual teachers and so on. Now, there may not be harm in, kind of like, having the idea that you come, but not to wait around, because that could be a long, long time. People have been waiting for the second coming of this and that person for thousands of years. And in the meantime, they're suffering. So, that, one's self is one's best friend, really. And like the Buddha said in some other stanzas, if you don't find as a person you're equal or better, it's better to wander alone like the rhinoceros. Okay. Now, the story behind this, there was a nun, it seems, and before she got ordained as a nun, she conceived a child, but she didn't know it. Maybe she became a nun 1 or 2 months after having conceived a child, and she didn't know that because they didn't have these tests like they do these days. They can find out immediately whether they're pregnant or not, right? And so later she gave birth to a son. Maybe she was even a nun already, but out of compassion, okay, she gave birth to the son. But the king adopted her, it said. So the king, out of compassion, he adopted this son of the nun. And then after that boy became of age, that means at least 7 years old, he become a samanera, or 20 years old, he become a bhikkhu. He got ordained and he attained arahantship. So this son of a nun, when he was still quite young, he was able to attain arahantship. So maybe the fact that his mother was a nun his mind was attracted to that mother to get the birth. Anyway, so, but the mother, the nun, couldn't give up her attachment to the son. So she had a lot of attachment to her son. And one day she met her son on the street who was going for alms. And she approached the son with affection. Maybe she approached the son and wanted to hug him or something. He said, "Oh, my dear son." But he was an arahant, right? So he kind of just was indifferent. He didn't show her any undue affection. And that caused her to think, because she was a nun, so she should know better anyway, right? So that now if her son was said, "Oh, mommy, hug her," then that might have increased her attachment. So he didn't return the affection, and that helped wake her up. And she attained arahantship too. So your mothers out there, there's hope for you. So hearing of her realization, the Buddha explained that one's savior or refuge is one's self, that she fell back on herself and you tapped into her own powers and attained liberation. Okay, this next verse is Atanava katam papam atajam mata sambhavam abhimantati dummedam vareram va asamayam maning. By oneself alone is evil done. It is self-born, or created by the self. It is self-caused. Evil grinds the unwise as a diamond grinds a hard gem. So that's quite a well-known verse that you find in a lot of temples, meditation centers. The advice of the Buddha, but it also goes the same way about the good is done by oneself as well. But this is talking about the evil actions. So a lot of people say, "Oh, he made me do it." Well, this is the common, made me do it. I was under the influence of drugs. I didn't know what I was doing. Still, but you took the drugs, right? So in a sense, you did it because you took the drugs. And when you take drugs, you get drunk, you know that you're going to do wrong things because that's what happens. So, but anyway, or hanging out with bad friends. The Buddha advised you don't hang out with bad friends. But if you don't heed his advice, and the bad friends corrupt you and tempt you to do something that then causes you problems, you might blame them, but ultimately you caused it yourself. So that analogy of evil grinds the unwise is a diamond grinds a hard gem. So a diamond can grind down anything, right? So our evil intentions of greed, hatred, and delusion can grind down our wisdom if it gets unbalanced, especially if we don't have spiritual friends and we don't have that balance in the life. Then, those negative tendencies and ignorance can just keep grinding away until, people are hit the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, of, wind up whatever, committing suicide or causing their death by some drug overdoses or so many kind of things. Okay. So this story, there was a devout layperson, and he listened to the Buddha's teaching throughout the night. And in the morning, so after having heard the Dhamma all night, he went to a pond and was washing his face. At that time, a thief who was being pursued by others. So this guy had maybe stole something from others, and these other people were chasing this thief. And this thief threw the stolen goods down by this person who had listened to the Dhamma the whole night, who was washing his face. You've heard stories about that, right? And those people fled off. Then people saw this person who was washing the face, who had listened to the Dhamma, and the stolen goods and so they assumed this person had stolen those things, and they beat that innocent man to death. So hearing the sad story, the Buddha stated that although the man was innocent, he had experienced such a tragic death owing to past evil karma. So something he might have done either in a younger life or in a past life, which the result then manifested as him getting blamed for having stolen and put to death. Now, we see this happen all the time. People are on death row. There's so many people on death row in America who have been found to be innocent, and some of them were executed for crimes that they didn't do, but maybe they had done one in the past life, and then this is the karma catching up to them. So karma works that way, and that's why it's difficult to know and see the results of one's karma, because we don't know what we might have done in the past. So the Buddha then, understanding that, he spoke on, that the self alone is responsible for their actions. And so that if something happens to us, if we don't know what the cause of it was in this life, we could probably assume it was something we did in a past life because we've done everything in the book, right? In many hundreds or more past lives, we've done every kind of evil there is, even though we've done some good also, or we're doing good now, but we still can expect to reap, the painful consequences of some past deeds. So rather than blaming somebody in the past, we can say, well, it's possible I did this to somebody else, and then kind of be more accepting, right? Now people may say, well, that's a bad way to look at it, and, this and that. But, again, karma is a very difficult and complex subject. Okay, I'm going to skip over to verse number 9. Now, this is sort of the opposite of the one we just read. Atana vakatam papam atana samkilesati atana akatam papam atana va visujjati suddhi asuddhi pachatam nanyo anyam visodai. By oneself indeed is evil done. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself indeed is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one purifies another. So this reiterates what was mentioned in the previous verse, and then the opposite of that, good deeds are done by one's self, and only one can purify another. Now, a lot of people, they go around wanting blessings from others, and they're hoping others will somehow, with a magic wand, kind of, purify their minds. But we know that, don't count on that. And that the purity comes from oneself. We've defiled our own mind. And with the help of the Dhamma, that's the whole point of the Dhamma, is we use the Dhamma to then help create the conditions where we can undo the painful negative karma and create the right conditions for, experiencing freedom and more happiness, freedom and liberation. So no one purifies another. So, that saying that you can lead a horse to water that you can't make him drink. So only a person can, you can leave a whole stack of Dhamma books on somebody's, doorstep, or you always send them Dhamma books, but whether they read them or not, you can't force to read, right? So, you might have left a Dhamma book with somebody said, "Oh, did you read that? Oh, I looked at it, I looked at one, skimmed over one chapter one night, forgot about it, So, that's not going to cut it. So the story behind this verse is there another devout layperson, having listened to the doctrine throughout the night, went in the morning to a pond to wash the face. So this sounds very much, maybe it was the same person, or maybe it was another time. At that moment, a thief threw his stolen goods and fled. People molested him, taking him for the thief. But then, so that's up to that point, that's the same story we just read in the previous verse, right? But then, rather than the people killing them, some courtesans, that means some ladies of the night, right, who were passing that way, saw this person having been, molested him. They saved him, and took him and, cared for him until he got well. So, hearing this story, the Buddha uttered this verse. Okay, we're going to do just one last verse in this chapter, number 10. Atadatam paratena bahuna pina hapaye atudatam abhinaya sadatta pasutosiya. For the sake of others' welfare, however great, let not one neglect one's own welfare. Clearly perceiving one's own welfare, let one be intent on one's own goal. Now, this is a dilemma that many Dhamma practitioners face, in this modern age, because of, within their family, there could be a lot of people who are caught up in self-destructive habits. Even though one is practicing, you yourself may be practicing the Dhamma, and maybe through that practice, you've made some good progress and you've overcome some bad habits, whatever it might have been. But your relatives or other good friends are still caught up in that. In leaving them Dhamma books or telling, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, but they don't want to listen. And so one shouldn't try to save people that don't want to save themselves to the extent that they're going to get brought down with that person. And so one has to have, follow the middle path in that, and one has to know one's own sort of limits. So we may try to bend over our backwards trying to get somebody to go to therapy, for example, or to practice yoga or practice meditation. And we might try to do, buy them a subscription to a yoga studio or pay their tuition on a 10-week meditation course. But, do things like that, wanting to help the person, but the person kind of just doesn't want to do that. And it may happen over and over again to the extent where it's affecting your mind and causing you more defilements. So the Buddha says, forget about it. Let it go. That person has their own karma to work out, and you have your own karma to work out. We help people as much as we can according to our ability, but we have to understand some people are not going to be so-called saved in this life, and we have to accept that, even though it might sound a little cruel. But we do whatever we can, but not to the point where it's causing you the mental grief. And you say, well, this person has to, fend for themselves. You've done what you could. So, and then beyond one's goal. For example, let's say there's some people also, because I've seen it with certain people, they want to become a monk or a nun. Well, I know more monks than nuns, so I'll say a monk, right? So there's some guys who want to become a monk, but they got aging parents. So then they thought, well, it's selfish if I become a monk and then my parents, need my help. So they delayed the becoming a monk for, some years. So to do that, compassion, right? So they're helping the parents as much as they can. But they did the duty. Then the parents died. Now this person is relatively free. Then maybe some other relative who has some other lazy family members that won't care for them, and they expect you to go and help them and delay your becoming a monk for another 5 or 10 years. So you have the right to say, no, I'm going to become a monk now. And let that family then take care of it. Everybody's, with families and in other places, if everybody wants to take the easy way out. So if they see one family member is willing to always volunteer and go stay with grandma for the weekend, the other ones will always make it a reason not to, right? And so that they can just do their own selfish things. Or say, oh, you're not married, you don't have kids, well, you should go, you should do that. This happens all the time. At some point, a person has to, if one really wants to, make a cutoff and really practice, cut off those ties, one has the right to do that. If one has already sort of put in one's dues and did what they could, especially with the parents, that's considered a very important thing. And but not to think that one has to go out and save the world to the detriment and put off one's own more, intense spiritual practice. So that is the meaning of that. And the story behind that, I'm just going to tell this last story here. As the Buddha was about to pass away, his disciples, of course, from far away, came to pay their last respects to the Buddha. And they were, bringing flowers, and they were crying, "Oh, the Buddha, light of the world, is passing away." But instead of all, there was one monk who was staying out a little bit apart from the others, meditating, and he wasn't, grieving and, prostrating at the Buddha's feet and begging him not to die and all things like that. This other monk went off to meditate. And then some other monks who said, "Oh, so-and-so, he's not coming to pay his last respects to you. He's sitting over there, alone meditating." And the Buddha said, "That is my disciple. That is how people respect me, not by coming and crying and mourning and heaping flowers on this dying body. That is how you respect me, by practicing the Dhamma." So that was what the Buddha, how he would consider that, paying respect to the Buddha means practicing the Dhamma, not prostrating at his feet so many times and so on. Now, that can also be done, but the point is, not some people take the worship to be the whole practice and don't meditate. And then others only want to meditate without paying any respects. So actually one really needs to balance that. You have to balance the inner with the outer. And if you just think, "Oh, I can meditate myself. I don't need anybody. I don't need to bow to anybody. I don't need to go seek anybody else's advice." And it could get a little bit ego lopsided that way. So that's why the vandana, the paying respects to elders and some chanting and some devotion, that's a kind of a balance for the what's called dry wisdom, and kind of the heart, kind of to help, soften up the heart and so on. So, but anyway, people have to find a balance in that. Okay, so that's the verses on the self. So even ultimately, as we don't have a self, we have a relative self, and we have to remember that. And that relative self is important, and we have to nurture it, and we have to know the things that help to keep that relative self in a healthy balance, and to allow that relative self to seek happiness, but seek happiness in the Dhamma, not at the expense of other people, but until eventually you can let go of that need for happiness, when the mind has actually become one with the Dhamma. Okay, so now if there's any questions that might have come up, I invite anybody to write a question on the chat. Let's see, there's something in the chat box. Let's look at that one first. Anybody else can write something down? Okay, it's not a question, but it's just some comments. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. That means, I guess, somebody appreciated what was said. So any other questions? Anybody want to write something down for a chat? Or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question over your microphone, then you could do that also. Okay, here's something else here. Oh, I forgot this. This maybe an interesting article from Thanissaro Bhikkhu on this subject. Although many believe that the ego is just a source of trouble, Thanissaro Bhikkhu teaches that a healthy functioning ego is a crucial tool. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying also. It has to be a balanced one that's supported by the Dhamma. That's the thing that keeps the ego in a healthy state. So if you want to, looks like there's a link to that article in the Tricycle magazine. So anybody who, you can copy that down if you're interested. And thank you, Reed, for sharing that article. I don't read so many magazines these days and so on, so I'm not aware of all the, up-to-date articles, and I'm sure there are many, many, many. So it's good that others can keep those up. Okay? So if there's no other questions, if no one wants to ask a question, we will take a short break to use the restroom and then come back and do a few yoga stretches and then have our meditation practice. How's that sound? Okay? See you back in a few minutes. Stretches now. Bring that clock closer. Okay, gonna stand straight. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Try to feel the height and the weight of the body over the feet. Relax your arms and hands at the side. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of your shoulders and chest, arms. Feel the head balanced on top. And begin taking some deep, slow breaths. If you know the three-part breathing, drawing the air from the lower lung up through the middle rib cage to the upper chest. And hold the air in the lungs, feeling that expansion of the chest. And slowly let the air out. Try to feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. And then the next in-breath. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths, gradually bringing the mind into the body, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Again, we'll combine these movements with the breathing, repeating each one 3 times. So on the in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back to look at the back of your hands, stretch upwards. Out breath, turn the hands down, touch the top of the head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms. Bend backwards a little bit. Stretch upwards at the same time. Out breath, touch the head. Third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. Just feel the sensation. Release the fingers and the out breath, arms back to the sides. Relax, the mind focused in the body. Just feel the increased body sensation, heart beating, pulsation, clothing touching the skin, any body movements, itching sensation. Present moment awareness grounded in the body. If you can't feel anything, just remember standing, standing. Just let your thoughts come and go in the back of the awareness. Keep the standing, breathing body in the front of the awareness. And the next in-breath, push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head like this, facing your hands toward each other. And stretch up. Out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the in-breath to help lift up the body, in-breath. stretch. Out. Once more, in. Out. Relax. Just keep feeling the body, the feet pressing the floor, the arms and hands at the side, clothing touching the skin, the head balanced on top. You should be able to feel all those different sensations in kind of one glance. Just remember standing. This is taking care of yourself, developing present moment, body-centered awareness. One of the best things you can do for oneself, one's mind. Okay, next we'll do side bending using one arm at a time. So on an in-breath, raise your left arm up. Keep the fingers and the arm straight, the bicep touching the side of your head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. And keep the arm and fingers straight. In-breath, lift up. 2 more times, the same side, out-breath. Feel the stretch in the side. In-breath. Out-breath. On the out-breath, lower that arm. Next in-breath, raise the other arm. 3 times to the left side, out-breath. Lower that arm. Just keep feeling the body. Don't give the mind any time to wander to the past or future. So try to feel subtler and subtler body vibration and sensation. Now spread the feet apart, at least 3 feet, wider the better. And keep the hands together at the chest. Breathe in, hands over the head. Out breath, hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower down. In breath, all the way up. out. In, out. In, out breath. Feel each foot pressing the floor, the sensation of the legs spread apart. Feel the hands touching the upper legs. Feel the clothing touching the body. Head balanced on top. You feel the eyes and the sockets. And just mentally feeling the body exactly as it is. That wide-angle lens of awareness. Feeling the outline of the body. Now hold the arms out to the sides, and we'll do the twisting from right to left. And breathe in. On the out breath, twist around to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, and then to the left side, out breath. In breath, back to the front. To the right, out breath. In, out. In. Once more to each side. And lower the arms, relax. Feel the sensations in the shoulders. Just feeling the body exactly as it is, here and now. And keep the legs spread apart. We'll do the forward and backward bending, keeping the legs apart. Let the hands touch the front of your legs. Be careful with the back bending. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands come down to the knees, but keep the head up looking out straight ahead. Try to flatten the spine, arch the spine down a bit, get the hump out of the spine. Feel the stretch in the legs. In breath, lift up. Move the hands around under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. Gently bend backwards, not too far the first time. Keep your eyes open. In breath, carefully lift up. And again, out breath, bend forward. Second time, let the hands come below the knees. Still keep the head up, back flat. Legs straight, feel the stretch in the hamstring muscle. In breath. Again, the back bend, out breath. In breath, up. And the third time, let the hands come down toward the feet as far as you can. Still keep the head up and hold that position, holding on to your legs, your feet longer. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs, hamstring muscle. Breathe in, lift up. Once more, the back bend. Be careful, try to bend a little back further. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, just relax. Feel the whole body. It's vibrating, pulsating with activated life force. You feel or imagine that all those activated cellular vibrations permeating, suffusing all the cells and tissues of the body, mind, nervous system. Just allowing the awareness to rest in the present moment. Being content with the present moment of being. Doing something good for oneself. Learning how to rest in that inner stillness, present moment awareness. One of the most valuable things you can do for the self, if you wish good for yourself. And for others. Okay, now bring the legs back together. And just stand straight. We'll finish with the head turning. And the in-breath, turn the head to the right. Look over the right shoulder. The out-breath all the way back to the left, to look over the left shoulder. In-breath back to the right. Out-breath left. In-breath, right. On the in-breath, let the head stop in the middle. Just feel the whole body, a subtle vibration. Present moment awareness centered in the body, the natural awareness. What you had as a baby for 9 months in the womb. Okay, so come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting awareness. Okay, so just get comfortable on your meditation seat. Just keep the back and the head in a straight line. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips. Keeping the chin level parallel to the floor. Just try to imagine sitting like a Buddha statue. Sitting in an erect posture, keeping mindfulness up front. And take a few deep, slow breaths to ground the attention in the breathing body. So like we were doing in the yoga exercise, do some deep, slow breathing, filling up, drawing the air from the lower lung up through the middle chest to the upper chest. Feel that expansion, holding the air in the lungs for a few seconds. To get all the oxygen into the bloodstream and feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. At the end of the out breath, just feel the body grounded to the seat. Just take several more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness of the breathing and posture. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now to develop a more continuous concentration, count the breaths from 1 to 10. Try to continue taking the deep, slow breaths to help concentrate. Now the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel that pause. With the contracting out breath, count 1. Feel the last bit of air go out to the lung. And the next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath, 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled rhythm. But continue to feel it. Stay focused in the same general area, feeling the movements of the abdomen, rib cage, or chest. Or you can try to feel the air as it enters the nostrils and feel the expansion of the lungs. On the out breath, the lungs contracting, the air going out through the nostrils. You can follow that whole process. It'll help you to stay concentrated. Just try to feel the 4 phases of each breath. There's the incoming, expanding in-breath. There's a brief pause, fraction of a second. And there's the contracting, outgoing breath. And the brief pause before the next in-breath. Really make the effort to try to feel the pauses between the breaths. Usually no one ever mentions the pauses between the breaths, so the mind wanders. And that forces you to follow the in-breath to its end in order to see the pause. And when you see the pause, you'll see the start of the out-breath. It's called connecting the breath. The pause connects the in-breath to the out-breath, and the out-breath to the next in-breath. And in that pause, there's the present moment awareness. Sometimes the pause is even a little longer. You relax with the out-breath at the end of the out-breath. And that pause might be a little longer. It's very pleasant to feel that. And then the next incoming breath. Just notice how each breath is different. Sometimes the in-breath is longer than the out-breath. The out-breath is longer than the in-breath. The pauses between the breaths are longer or shorter. Be like a scientist in the laboratory, observing his experiment. Mindfulness of breathing, in the first stage of mindfulness meditation. If any wandering thoughts interrupt your concentration, notice them. Just be aware of thinking, let go of the thought. Coming back to the breathing. Even during one breath, there's many different kind of subtle sensations. Clothing touching against the skin or other sensations. In the pauses between the breaths, check the posture. The chin is drooped down, mindfully lift it back up level to the floor. The spine is slouching. Re-establish the natural inward curve of the lower spine. Help support the upper body. Just resist that downward pull of the gravity. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Just letting the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Keeping the sitting, breathing body in the front of the concentrated awareness. Just feeling more and more subtle sensation. Catch yourself lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. Take a deep breath, bring the mind back into the body, to re-enter the flow of present moment awareness. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. It's balancing both mindfulness and concentration. Mindfulness is that alert state of awareness from moment to moment. The concentration is holding that awareness within the outline of the body. Within the sitting, breathing body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Pleasure or pain come and go. Perceptions, thoughts, urges, emotions come and go. Thoughts of I, me, your mind come and go. These are all just the conditioned mental phenomenon, the five aggregates, just arising and passing away, continuous process. Just beneath all of that flow of impermanence, of mental chaos, is the parallel dimension of the now, of the present moment awareness. It's not affected by any of the changing flow of impermanence. The knowing awareness. There's three aspects of the mental process. The knower, which is the idea of me, myself. The known, which is identifying various objects. And then the knowing, which is in the middle. The mind normally jumps right over the knowing to react to the known. So we miss that subtle knowing awareness in the middle. It's the present moment awareness. The knower and the known belong to the past and future. The knowing is in the middle. What perceptions or thoughts break through that mental continuum? Sabbi sankhara anicchati, sabbi sankhara dukkati, sabbi dhamma anattati, yada panyaya pasati. Atane bindati dukkhi esamaggo visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to change and vanish away. And all conditioned things have clung to with ignorance, bring worry and suffering. And all the dhammas, the conditioned dhammas, as well as the unconditioned deathless state, have no ultimate owner or controller. They are not self. When one understands these three characteristics with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now let's spend the last few minutes of the meditation sending out thoughts and vibrations of metta or friendliness, best wishes to our own body and mind, and sending them outward towards all others. So again, just take a few deep, slow breaths. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds to imagine that oxygenated blood being like metta going out to all the cells of the body, tranquilizing any agitation. And on the out breath, feeling that relaxing sensation and present moment vibration in the mind that is doing something good for your own body and mind, sending yourself metta. So just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness. May I be well, peaceful, and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from the self-created sufferings of body and mind brought about by such unskillful thought, speech, and actions. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I continue to be able to deepen my understanding of the Dhamma in the practice of meditation, free the mind from confusion and suffering. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. Try to keep taking some deep, slow breaths, and with each out breath, holding in the breath with each out breath. Imagine sending out these same thought vibrations of metta, friendliness, best wishes to your family members, relatives, friends, colleagues at work, others you see every day. And gradually spreading these thought vibrations out across the whole country and the world. with the idea that may all living beings, wherever they might be, living near or far, visible or invisible, friend, enemy, or stranger, weak or the strong, rich or the poor, may all living beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, and the self-created suffering caused by the unskillful thoughts and actions. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings have the opportunity to continue hearing the Dhamma and the practice of meditation to help free the mind from confusion and suffering. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, understanding the ultimate interconnectedness and interdependence and of all things. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Now I invite you to finish this meditation by chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. Do the chanting on a long out breath. Feel those vibrations in the body and mind. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. Place the hands at the edge of the knees and take one more deep breath. Stretch the head back, pulling hands against the knees to arch the spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. And put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. I hope everyone had a peaceful or insightful meditation. And thank you for all for joining in this week. And during the week, continue to practice daily meditations and take the meditation supplements, the M&Ms, every hour or as often as you can during the day. And we'll see you again next week or on Sunday or next Wednesday in the sutta. We'll be going over again, starting the section on the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the section on the feeling of the four elements, which is a very interesting and powerful type of reflection and meditation. So that will be on Wednesday evening. I hope to send out a reminder about that in the mailing tomorrow. Okay? So wherever you are, be well, happy, and peaceful. Mindfulness today keeps dukkha away. Sutta a day keeps delusions away. And Namo Buddhaya. Bye.
Namo Buddhaya. Thank you, Bhante.
Keep well.
Thank you, Bhante. Namo
Thank you,
Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you.